all of a sudden, the Israeli media is publishing more polls in Israel showing how many Israelis are in favor of a ceasefire in Gaza now, including right-wing media that is aligned with and blindly supports Benjamin Netanyahu. Recent polls show that 71% of Israelis now support a ceasefire with Gaza, up from the 61% that was published a few days ago. These things indicate that Israel is indeed looking to reach a ceasefire in Gaza. The reasons for that are primarily the grave defeat that the genocide army has suffered both in Gaza and Lebanon, despite many attempts to cover up that failure with aggression, mass crimes, and genocide against the Palestinian and Lebanese people through ethnic cleansing campaigns, war crimes, barbarisms, and atrocities beyond any human imagination. Now, that's the main reason, really and truly. The main reason is the armed resistance facing Israel. If there is no armed resistance, you can say goodbye to both Palestine and Lebanon. The only thing keeping these areas alive are the armed resistance, primarily. Then, of course, the solidarity, the steadfastness of the people, and then, of course, we have the supporting fronts in the form of, well, Lebanon initially, and then we had Yemen, support from Syria, support from Iraq, and of course from the state of resistance, Iran. There are also other things to do with this move towards a ceasefire from Benjamin Netanyahu, who went and escalated in Lebanon to reach a ceasefire in Lebanon, climbed down the ladder, and set a new precedent, primarily when it comes to his main obstacles to a ceasefire in his government, Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich. And now he is talking more about a prospect of a ceasefire in Gaza. There's something else, though. There have been reports being published lately that, contrary to some assumptions previously, that Donald Trump actually did not want Benjamin Netanyahu to reach ceasefire before he is in office in the end of January 2025. But that actually, no, Donald Trump wants him to end this before he comes to office, because he does not want to deal with it when he comes to office. Again, how valid are these reports? We haven't had clear verification, but again, with the talks that happen between leaders of countries and certain officials' leaks, you might have certain things that could be genuine. But fact of the matter is, we are having more talk, and not only that we are having more talk in Israel, we are having more confirmations coming from Israel that the ceasefire that will be coming will be a submission to the Palestinian resistance, despite all of the coatings that they want to put on it. How? Well, the Palestinian resistance has 5 red lines: ending the war, getting all the people back to where they came from in Gaza, allowing all aid in, rebuilding, and having a just prisoner swap. And we're still having talks even in Israel about emptying the Israeli prisons from Palestinian prisoners who are being tortured. Now, that was there from the days after the temporary ceasefire ended, because Hamas, leading these negotiations, did not want to put the Palestinians in the same circle that they were in before, with uncertainty and giving Israel an opportunity to have a war again. The thing that they added later on, though, is something very interesting that we spoke about at the time: the addition of more mediators. Who are these mediators? Russia, China, and Turkey. We already spoke about the involvement of Turkey in the negotiation towards a ceasefire in Gaza over a week ago, with a delegation from the Israeli Shabak visiting Turkey to discuss the ceasefire in Gaza. That is after Turkey publicly declared that they're cutting ties with Israel. And now we also have a confirmation that who? Russia is indeed now involved. This was a report in the Israeli newspaper Ma'ariv. On the way to an agreement, they asked the new Russian card in the kidnap deal. This is indicating direct Russian involvement. How? Following the demands of Hamas, because Russia wasn't in the picture. Israel and the United States did not want Russia in the picture. Russia is a side that is openly supporting Iran, who's backing, the primary backer of the resistance. They have drills with Hezbollah in Iran, and they have great levels of coordinations with them. So how comes all of a sudden they're accepting this now? This is because Hamas demanded that, and now they realize they need to submit to the will of the Palestinian resistance to reach a deal, because all of their crimes and war crimes and acts of barbarism in Gaza to try and force the Palestinian people and the Palestinian resistance to kneel down have been unsuccessful and failed miserably. They said in Israel it is estimated that the only party in contact with all or most of the organizations holding the hostages is Iran. They're trying to justify the involvement of Russia. Therefore, Russia is seen as a possible mediator who can promote the issue in front of the Revolutionary Guards. All of a sudden, now they remembered that Russia has some sort of leverage when it comes to Iran. Well, just recently, you asked Russia to have leverage with Syria and Hezbollah, didn't you? They said, Ron Dermer, well, he was in Moscow, and he asked the Russians to help them stop channeling weapons from Syria, and look at how that's linked with what's happening now in Syria. Stop allowing Syria to pass and channel weapons to Hezbollah, and you don't have to make it obvious. You don't have to declare it. The only thing you have to do is just do it. No declaration so that you're not viewed in a negative manner. Russia responded immediately. No, that's beyond our role. That's beyond our military role in Syria, and Syria is entitled to do whatever it wants with its weapons, and that's none of our business. Straight out, no. So how comes now you're trying to do something with them with Gaza, if they just gave you a rejection when it comes to another favor, when you directly spoke with them? It doesn't make sense, does it? But again, this is a demand from the Palestinian resistance, and therefore Israel is adhering to the Palestinian resistance and including Russia. According to estimates in Israel, Hamas has difficulty locating the whereabouts of some of the abductees. Okay, a bit of propaganda. Something could be true to an extent when it comes to Hamas losing connection with some of their people holding the Israeli prisoners of war. I mean, they confirmed that once or twice, especially when they declared that some of the Israeli prisoners of war have been killed due to Israeli strikes on locations they were held in. Most recently, the Israeli in North Gaza, again indicating that they still have prisoners in North Gaza. That's something that should be alarming to everyone in Israel. The fact that you have Israeli prisoners of war in an area that is facing ethnic cleansing and continued bombardment, with the genocide general's plan to ethnically cleanse the population of North Gaza, as confirmed by none other than the ex-chief of staff of Israel, Moshe Ya'alon, Bogi Ya'alon. He said that in an interview with Democrat TV in Israel. And then, of course, people started to criticize him. People in Israel, in the military establishment, are saying our country is committing an ethnic cleansing in Gaza. Yet some of the people have the audacity to question the fact that we are talking about a genocide in Gaza. They added also, in light of Trump's victory and alongside the ongoing dialogue with Moscow regarding the non-transfer of IDF through the Syria-Lebanon border, the idea that has already been discussed in the past came back in the ongoing talks that Israel mediate between Moscow and Washington on the issue of ending the war between Russia and Ukraine and improving relations between Russia and the United States on. Thus, in return, Russia will distance itself from Iran. Again, claims, nothing substantiated here. Also, Israel sees Russia as a factor capable of contributing and influencing the return of the abductees. Didn't you know that from day one, Israel, when you still had all of your prisoners of war alive and before you started bombarding everyone, trying to kill all of your prisoners of war through an implementation of the Hannibal Directive to reduce the cost that the Palestinian resistance is asking from you? And now you realize that you are unable to kill all of them because simply some of them are in certain locations that you cannot reach 1 year, 2 months into the war. Did they realize that just now? Do we believe that they realized that just now? Of course not. But we have seen failure after failure. Now they're trying to convince us that that's the reason that they are speaking with Russia, not the fact that this was a Palestinian demand. Turkey, Russia, and China, guarantors for a ceasefire agreement, because they do not trust the American side, which is a direct contributor. And when I say Americans, you know what I mean, the American administration, before anyone starts to get offended. Of course, not the American people, especially the brave American people standing up for human rights and against these war criminals. They continued, we will remind you that this is after the ceasefire in the north came into effect, and now the pressure is increasing to reach an agreement to end the fighting in the Gaza Strip as well. Again, indicating that there is more internal pressure coming from Israel, and not just internal pressure, because it has always been there to an extent. It's the confirmation from Netanyahu himself that the situation is now ripened to reach a ceasefire. Now Benjamin Netanyahu is under double pressure. The Biden administration wants to record another political achievement before the end of his term, and the president-elect Donald Trump is also sending a message that he prefers to start the term when Israel's war with Hamas is over and there is no need to deal with the complicated issue. They're reporting this here, and again that could give Donald Trump a bit of support and backing, because he was promising everyone that I'm going to end the war, I'm going to end all wars. And there is confidence coming from him about ending the war in Russia. Now even Zelensky is saying we are willing to give up territories in return for NATO membership. But the fact of the matter is Zelensky is openly admitting that he's willing to give up territories to Russia. So a big chunk of it is now already declared from Zelensky himself. Egypt entered the picture at the same time. The pressures also exist inside the house. Senior officials of the Israeli security establishment believe that the Syrians in the north paved the way for an agreement with Hamas. The members of the negotiating team expressed themselves this way, among other things, during the last meeting of the political security cabinet on the eve of the approval of the settlement in the north. However, for now, Hamas does not show, at least not openly, signs of breaking or flexing regarding the terms of the deal. This is another confirmation that Hamas's conditions that represent the Palestinian resistance, conditions that represent the will of the Palestinian people in their majority in Gaza, are solid, are rock solid, and haven't shifted, and no amount of pressure in Israel is changing any of that. And that's being confirmed now in Israel as a done deal, and we're seeing steps to get there. And continues to demand, that's Hamas, to end the war in return for the return of the abductees. And again, they're mentioning Saudi reports that speak about the Egyptian proposal that included similar agreements happening between Gaza and Israel to the agreement that happened between Lebanon and Israel, with the management and agreement happening in the north with Russian mediation, again to justify Russian involvement in the mediation. All of that is stating that there are indeed advancements when it comes to the ceasefire. Now, mind you, talks and moves and reports about a genuine prospect to reach a ceasefire, not how solid that ceasefire would be, not how long will that ceasefire last, not talks about the ultimate solution for the Palestinian cause and the everything is fine now. No, just talks about reaching a ceasefire for the current conflict that we have been having since the Israeli genocide began following the Al-Aqsa flood operation that Hamas started alongside the Palestinian resistance on the 7th of October. This is what we're talking about. And indeed, there is progress there.